Hey, this is Jim with AP Logic. I want to talk to the startups that are working on software projects out there about a phase of the project that always seems to create a lot of consternation. And we refer to it as feature complete. But basically, it's right before the beta. When you start pulling all the pieces of the project together, you've got the user interface and various engineering aspects and apps are all coming together to create a product that you can actually begin to test. But at feature complete, all kinds of things pop up. Users discover interface challenges we never thought were going to happen. And I don't care how well you plan, especially with startups, this is going to happen. You're going to have integrations that don't work perfectly. You're going to have data that you thought was going to come into the system in a format that it's not. We see this constantly. We get a lot of phone calls from people that want to have us come in and help fix it. So here it is in 3 minutes. What we do at Feature Complete, and again, this term may have different meanings to different companies, but it's what we call it, is we fundamentally change the project completely, and we do it in 3 different ways. The first way we address this is we change accountability from implementers to business decision makers at this point. Why do we do this? Because the fundamental trade-offs that need to be made from Feature Complete on are primarily business decisions where, for example, there's always going to be desire for scope increase and, people are going to have special requests and there's going to be things like that going on. The business decision makers have to be able to trade off the timeline versus the needs of the investors versus, a solid product launch, et cetera, right? So business decision makers are critical there. Second thing, and this is probably most critical, is planning for the unplanned. We build timelines that have huge open containers in them rather than a really tight Gantt chart after feature complete. So open containers allow for multiple loops to occur where you might test something 4, 5, 6, 7 times to get it right, and you might be a 3-week process instead of a 1-week process. If you set the expectation that way, then the business decision makers and the other invested parties can make a decision. Hey, do we want to do this, or do we want to leave this thing undone and launch it that way? That's really important, and nobody gets frustrated, or less frustrated at least, because their expectations are that things are flexible there. Finally, we request and even demand that as we build out new releases of the software, we get rapid feedback to everything. Real testers in a real environment using real data with real devices. And those 4 things are absolutely critical to keeping the project moving. Otherwise, you find those little cycles I referred to earlier take a week instead of like a day or hours. You might be able to do 3 releases in 1 day if you're getting rapid feedback from your beta testers and you're not afraid to throw stuff out there and see what sticks. Remember, this is not a live release. Don't get caught in the perfectionism trap. The reason things are so different before feature complete versus after feature complete has to do with the fact, and I'll try and throw a graphic up here. Basically, you've got a lot of processes moving in parallel prior to feature complete during implementation. And after feature complete, you have lots of cycles and lots of interaction between those processes. So things are still moving in parallel. They're just constantly cross-communicating all the time because people are trying to put all the pieces of the project together. And so the faster you can communicate there, generally the faster you can solve problems. So it changes the communication style and the frequency of communication at that point. It's a fundamental inflection point in the course of the project. Again, the critical thing here is to draw a line in the sand and treat the project completely differently after feature complete. Understand there's going to be a lot of iterations, tons of communication, constant meetings, quick stand-ups, that sort of thing, quick phone calls, screen sharing, that sort of thing, and prepare for that. Make sure that the critical people on the team are all available during this phase. So that's my advice. Prepare for feature complete, set expectations accordingly, and don't be surprised by a lot of variation.